So the hospital itself was quite self-sufficient?
Very self-sufficient, yes. Yes, we had butchers, bakers, shoemakers, tailor, a dentist, x-ray, path lab assistant, you name it, we could do it.
This is, I guess, the laundry, is it?
Yes, that's the laundry, which employed about 30 or 40 patients and about 10 staff.
Wow.
And we did all our own laundry for the whole hospital, and when we were amalgamated into the group, we did the laundry for the whole of the Plymouth Health District.
Goodness me, that's why you've got such big washing machines.
That
there.
is indeed so.
And this one here, look, that's
the hairdressers. I remember Mary Avon with great fondness, and it was our first hairdressers, and it was a delight. It was over at Moorfields. It was a delight for the patients to go over and have their hair cut and blow dried and permed and all the things we ladies like.
And then you've got things like what looks like a very productive greenhouse.
We had three big greenhouses, right long was it just below where the potteries are now. They employed about 15 patients. We grew lettuce, cabbage, tomatoes. I don't know that our cabbage was up to David's, but it was pretty good.
And now this is a surprise, a swimming pool.
There was a swimming pool before my time, up around, I believe, where the garages are now, up by the potteries, where the hospital bus was garaged. And the story is, and I can't vouch for the truth of this, that a horse drowned in the swimming pool and the physician superintendent had it concreted in. But honestly, I wouldn't like to go to court on that one.
And that's interesting as well. You've got a sort of newspaper.
Yes, we had a weekly More News, which patients, staff, visitors, anyone contributed to, providing it was all right for printing. It was ever such a popular little magazine. Had the news of who'd got married or didn't get, who'd got divorced, but who had a baby, and all kind of more news really.
And what about food?
We had our own chefs, our own kitchen, and over the far end we had 3 big glass houses which supplied tomatoes, lettuce, everything.
So did you have to buy in any food, or was it all?
Not as far as I'm aware. I mean, remember then I was a student nurse doing what I was told most of the time. But I don't think, I mean, potatoes and everything came from the farm.
And this was two working farms here?
Yes. This was cows and the milk and everything. We had our own milk delivery. The milkman used to come round with his horse and cart round the wards, and sometimes the male staff were a bit naughty and they'd take the horse out of the cart and put him in back to front. Which caused hilarity with the patients, because as far as they were concerned, the horse was going the wrong way, a bit like them at times.
So I mean, there was some laughter up here.
Oh,
as well.
There was a lot of humour. I can remember, I mean, times were hard, you know. I was earning about £2.18 and 6 a week, and there was bus fares to pay out of that. And the male nurse came round with a raffle. We all had to go for threepence. And a nurse on the ward I was on won it, and it was a bar of hospital soap. So he'd made quite an innings, really, and she had to put the soap back in the kitchen. Yes, it was. They would laugh with the patients. You were taught this from right at the beginning. You laugh with them, you never laughed at them.
And actually, the patients would work on the hospital farms and
yes,
so forth.
Yes. And when I passed my first exam, I bought a motorbike, a 197 Tiger Cup, which I used to ride to and forth to the hospital. And one night I came off a ward right down the bottom of the hospital, and when I came out the door, my motorbike was parked outside. So I had my crash helmet and my motorcycle gear on. I got on my bike and I rode it through the hospital corridors, and the sound was tremendous. And every time anybody mentions me and Moorhaven there, they talk about me riding my bike through the corridors. So yes, there were very many light moments.
And there's something that's quite interesting that people have discovered is the Moorhaven money,
Yes.
the coins. Now, tell me a bit about those.
Funny money, we called it. I bought you some to look at. So that when we came to a discharge patients, not only did we have to teach them all sorts of things about the health service, which had come into being whilst they were in, and all sorts of other things, but we had to teach them the value of ordinary currency, how you used it. So yes, that's
So this, would they actually be able to spend this, or was it just to teach
They
them?
would spend it in the hospital shop.
Right, so this was actual Moorhaven currency?
Yes. Yes, you're holding Moorhaven currency in your hand.
Very interesting.
And the hospital shop was in the middle of the main building before we built one on the outskirts.
And on the medical side, then we've got a couple of photographs here with what?
These are pre-nursing cadets. This was, you couldn't start your nurse training till you were 18. And you could start as a pre-nursing cadet at 16. So this was trying to capture young people to start their training and not lose them to other jobs in that period from school leaving, which most people left at 16 until 18. This is the tutor Arthur Cutting, and these are the students in the lecture room, which is between, well, just before you get to Moorfields it was. I believe there's a house there now. And we had lectures, but they were given after, well, in duty time, but if you were on night duty you were expected to come into lectures. And if you see the nurse there with the stripe on her arm, that means she's passed her prelim. And in psychiatry you were given £40 for passing that exam.
Wow.
And £50 for passing your finals. If you're going back to the 50s, that was quite a lot of money.
Absolutely.
But it was done again to try attract people into psychiatric nursing, which was undergoing a new birth really. The registered mental nurse qualification had come in, qualifications before you could start your training had come in, because previously the qualifications looked for male nurses was to play a musical instrument or play cricket or football well and be a certain height. In females it was to be a good needlewoman and again a certain height, but no educational qualification at all. So this had started, registered mental nursing being recognised. Never, I don't think, quite with state registered nurse, but
getting
trying.
And then this photograph here, whereabouts is this?
That's over in the path lab. Every person that came in, every new admission, was given a blood test, and their blood was tested for all sorts of things. Their anemia, heaps of various things, including testing for syphilis. Well, what was everyone's reaction? Now, I really don't know why we did that, but it was standard. And
then
other things, urine tests were done there, all sorts of tests for, to check on the patient's health.
And this one here, this looks like a pharmacy.
Yes, this is a dispensary. This is a chap called Alfie Elliott, he was our pharmacist. This would have been a pre-nursing cadet helping him out. And it was quite a good way before you got on the wards to learn something about the medicines. Not that we had much in the way of medication, as you will see that it's nearly all bottles. That this was before chlorpromazine came in. And this, he also supplied the oxygen to the wards that was used following electroplexy treatment.
So is this one here, the operating theatre?
That's the operating theatre. That was up the top of what was Moorfields West. And we did leucotomies there, and this is a leucotomy being done, and this is a surgeon from Plymouth. That was the cutting of the frontal lobes. We also did other minor surgery there, as some of the surgeons in Plymouth didn't like our patients going down to Plymouth, although it was quite unreasonable, but I suppose consultants are allowed to be unreasonable, aren't they?
Tell me about the patients and segregation.
Right, there was a male side of the hospital and there was a female side of the hospital. There was a male side of the church and a female side, and a male side of the recreation hall and a female side. And never the twain shall meet. And of course some of the violence of the male patients was quite frightening, as was some of the violence of the female patients. So I suppose the mixture could have been quite explosive, really.
And eventually they began to mix?
After the introduction of my wonder drug, I mean, drugs have gone on since then to all the drugs that I think sometimes are given out far too freely. There we go. First of all, they allowed female staff to work on the male wards. Then the church was allowed to be mixed. And then the cinema was, and then you just, in my early days, if you'd seen a male patient on your side of the hospital, it would have been the end of civilization. But then mixing just became part, and I asked the matron and another sister and we got dingles to come up to our hall, and I think it was Tooses, I can't remember now, so that the patients could buy individual clothes. It was difficult. We had to mark it all because you know what it's like losing things in laundries. And I managed to persuade matron that we could, do you remember Playtex girdles? If we could buy Playtex girdles to keep the stockings up. The stockings has always been the bane of my life. Other nurses worry about injections and all sorts of things, but I worried about the stockings. And we got the Playtex. And there's a naughty story, I don't know whether I can tell you or not.
I think you should.
The patients were mixing at this time. So I got a letter from John, said, "Dear Sister Halliday, could Dorothy go back to the other corsets? These new ones are rubbing my private parts."
So this is from the regulations and orders of the Plymouth Mental Hospital, and it says here that there will be a limited number of married male nurses who will be allowed to sleep out at night provided a sufficient number of nurses are left in the building. No nurse, while in the service of the hospital, is allowed to marry without the sanction of the medical superintendent first being obtained. The violation of this rule may be met with instant dismissal.